Hi, my name is Cameron and welcome back to another ProductReview.com.au in-depth look at the Mercedes A35 AMG. And this is launch control. Now, following the success of the first generation A45 AMG, Mercedes-Benz has decided to expand their offering to customers by offering an A35 AMG, a slightly less powerful version of its bigger brother. Now, this is something that Mercedes-Benz is doing across all of its model ranges, all the way through the big SUVs down to the entry-level A-Class. But that makes this the entry-level AMG that you can buy today. And by entry-level, I mean by Mercedes standards. This thing starts at 71,609 Australian dollars before on-roads and options. This one you see here is pretty kitted out. It has sun yellow paint, black wheels, AMG aerodynamic package, and a slew of safety and comfort features inside, including this sunroof up the top. Now let's break down what makes this the entry-level AMG. There's a lot happening inside the A35 AMG, and all Mercedes for that matter, because they all feature this giant screen which replaces your center media controls and your dials behind the steering wheel. And this is something that Mercedes is doing to try and attract younger buyers, because the more tech that they have in their cars, the more attractive they think it'll be for younger buyers. And they're trying to shake that stereotype that only old people buy Mercedes-Benz. This is Mercedes-Benz user experience, or MBUX for short. MBUX is a interface that Mercedes-Benz is incorporating into all of their cars, which means that it is a highly responsive, very engaging software system, which is meant to look industry leading, and I believe it is close to. So this is just one panel that stretches from one side of the car to the other almost. And there's a little gap in the middle which is designed so if your hand or steering wheel is blocking the view of what might have been the screen there, you're not going to block any vital information. And so part of MBUX is all your typical information like parking cameras, media controls, navigation, and using Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's all very typical, but it's highly responsive through the center controls here, or actually using it as a touchscreen too. I've thoroughly enjoyed using the actual interface in here. But since this is an A35 AMG, you can also access AMG drive modes through the middle or on the steering wheel, which we'll get to just shortly. And the cool thing with MBUX is that you can actually set up personal profiles, and even in this car, you can set up a personal Wi-Fi hotspot. So that's kind of cool. Now, perhaps my favorite feature is that you can actually go through and customize what you want your dashboard to look like. So you can go through and have several different displays. My favorite one so far is Super Sport, because it just looks so bizarre. You have revs coming at you, and you also have your speed as well, and it looks like something out of a TIE fighter from Star Wars. But yeah, there is tons of information and tons of customization through the dashboard simply on the screen in front of you. Now, moving down to the steering wheel, you've got paddle shifters, which are A35 specific, with up and down inscribed onto the shifters themselves. You've got a nice 12 o'clock band here, which isn't in red, which is kind of nice. It's very subtle compared to everything else, like the color on this car. It's a nice sort of almost square steering wheel. You've got flat sides, flat bottom, and you've got AMG inscription on the bottom here. Now, moving down into the lower portions of your A35 AMG steering wheel, and on the right is perhaps the coolest feature as well. It's a little OLED panel, and you spin this dial into Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus, which is really neat. And the different graphics they have here are just very cool to see on a car that's essentially a practical hatchback. It is very high tech. I do love this little feature here, and the button feel is very nice, very tactile, even though it is a screen. On the left here, we do have customization for different drive modes and engine start stop, for example. So you have two little plastic buttons here on the left, which allow you to toggle on and off the different mode you've selected. But something that I learned was that you actually click on the screen, and that's a second button, and that changes what feature you're having displayed on the screen. So it could be gearbox, or it could be suspension, for example, and then you can change what type of suspension or what type of gearbox you want to run with the little plastic toggle here. Now, as for the rest of this interior, this is a fully kitted out A35 AMG. You have a heads-up display, you have heated and cooled seats, you have these great single headrest bucket seats with, yes, pass-throughs for race harnesses if you choose so. Simply put, I do think this is one of the best Mercedes interiors I've been in a while. I wasn't a huge fan of some of the Mercedes interiors. Sometimes they felt a little bit cheap for what you're paying for, but this really does feel premium, and it feels like you're stepping into a nice place that you want to be in, rather than going just for the badge, you're stepping into it. So no, it's a great interior. I really, really do enjoy sitting in here, especially the theater of sitting in these AMG seats. I am a big fan of these seats. They are honestly very comfortable and they do keep you nice and snug. So sitting in the back of the A35 AMG isn't really a super comfortable affair with these nice bucket seats, because seat here is adjusted for how I would sit, and the back passenger is not going to get much space back here. There's a little vent here for the cooled seat, and there's two vents here for climate control in the rear. I do feel nice and snug because it does have this little bolstering here, so at least if my driver decides drive a bit fast, I will be snug. Headroom is pretty decent because it's not the CLA or A-Class sedan, which suffer from a bit of loss of headroom in the rear for being in that sedan shape in such a compact size. You don't get that here. I have good headroom, and if the front driver decides to be a bit more generous with his seating position, then you might get a tiny bit more legroom, but it is pretty bad back here for your knees if you are over 6 foot. I am 5'11", and I am pretty much folded in back here. Angry looking thing, isn't it? This is sun yellow. It's a non-metallic paint, and yes, it is an option on the A35 AMG. I personally think it looks the best because it does complement all these different accents, black and silver, quite well. Here at the front, you've got an A35 AMG specific grille with twin blades. On the A45 AMG, which is the more expensive, more powerful version of this, you have a design called the Panamericana grille, which is vertical slats. So that's how you tell the difference. This has the aerodynamic package as well, which has these little canards down here to guide air past the side of the car. And you've also got some air pass-throughs here on the front grille as well. But yes, there are still some fake grills still reserved for the more powerful A45 AMG. And you've also got a pretty angry front splitter as well, which you don't want to hit on any driveways, so be wary of that. And you've got some nice LEDs at the front as well, which have a nice Mercedes-Benz script, and I think look very nice on this car because they wrap almost around to the side of the car, so you can drive past and see your cool LEDs when you see yourself in the shop windows. You've got a turbo badge right here with 4MATIC written underneath it to let everyone know that you've got a turbocharged all-wheel drive hot hatch. You've also got black accents up here, silver accents on the handle, and a nice AMG side skirt. You've also got some nice black wheels as well with silver accents around the side, which I think look great. Personally, that's an option. And you've also got 350mm front brakes that are cross-drilled and ventilated to help dissipate heat. And you've got silver brake calipers, which are 4 pots up the front, and you've got pretty seriously sized brakes at the rear. Up here on the roof, you've also got roof rails, so you can actually put roof racks on here, which makes it very practical and a nice convincing case to the decision maker in your household. And you've also got the glass from the optional sunroof here as well. And now coming up to the rear of the A35 AMG, and this is where your money's going if you get the AMG aerodynamic package. And part of that is this giant wing here, which looks pretty functional with a little gurney flap and some grooves in there, and the fact that you actually got functional space for air to pass through. So personally, get this if you want your A35 to look a little bit more aggressive than the standard car. You've also got this more aggressive diffuser down here, which has a nice little lip and actually allows air to pass through. So I bet that's pretty functional too. So thumbs up AMG, you've actually done a functional aero on a hot hatch, which is pretty rare to see. You've also got nice 90mm in diameter twin exhaust tips out here. These ones have been blacked out and I think they look nice and mean. The only thing I don't like about the rear here is that they sit in this weird housing, which is clearly made for 4 pipes, which you do have on the A45, but on the A35 it makes do with 2. So they sort of fill in the side here and it looks not as good as I would like it to. And it's obviously an AMG, so these tailpipes have to actually do something. So this is what the A35 AMG sounds like. You do unfortunately have some fake vents here on the side, but it is forgiven seeing that you do have some functional aero up here. You've got the A35 badging here, and yes, a legitimate AMG badge, not one that your cousin threw on in his workshop. So yes, a bona fide AMG. Now here at the back of the A35 AMG, you have 370 litres back here, which is very generous for a car in this segment. And that's enough to put plenty of backpacks back here, but don't expect any space underneath the boot floor because this is again another all-wheel drive hatchback, which means you do lose space underneath the boot floor. Back here you have a space saver kit, and that's pretty much it. So don't expect anything else. There are some other cool features in here, like a warning triangle. You've got a first aid kit here. You've got some high vis gear here. And also this pretty sweet umbrella, which has got a Mercedes-Benz style gear shifter as the handle. Very nice. But to put a decently sized backpack in here, you've got plenty of space. You take out this parcel shelf, you've got good vertical space as well. Now, if you do take out this parcel shelf, which is pretty easy to do, you're then greeted with a 40-20-40 split rear, which means you can have the middle seat folded down and you can carry up to 4 people in this car, which is pretty unique. You can have up to 1,210 litres of space. So that is a very generous amount, especially with a very nice load height. You're not gonna have any problem throwing your gear in the back. So nice work, Mercedes, again. You're doing pretty well. You're impressing me all right here with the amount of space you're getting in the back. And so here's the point of controversy in this car, because there isn't a plaque here of the person who built this engine, because this isn't a hand-built AMG motor. That doesn't matter though, because this thing puts out 225 kilowatts, 400 Newton meters of torque, and it goes 0 to 100 in a claimed 4.7 seconds. If you tell me that's not enough power for you, I want to know what car you're driving, because this is an insane amount of power in a car that weighs about 1,500 kilos. Now, I say this isn't a hand-built motor because this is in fact the A250 motor and the same one that it uses, except with a few different touches, and the main one being this twin-scroll turbocharger you can see mounted up the front here. Now, that turbocharger is designed to feed a lot more air and a lot greater compression to allow this car to produce the insane power figures that it's putting out for an engine of its size. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder. And you've got some classic AMG touches on here, like the AMG badging here on the actual engine cover, a nice red streak, a Mercedes badge, and 4 little pipes to indicate that it is a 2-litre 4-cylinder. You've also got a great big airbox, which you can in fact hear from inside the car. So nice touch, Mercedes. It is very much a performance-oriented engine. It is not just an engine from a different model thrown in. They've done a lot of work to make sure this is going to perform just like an AMG. So this all looks very nice with the AMG badging and all, but let's see how this thing really performs. We're in the A35 AMG Sport Plus, and this is launch control. This thing is insane. If anyone tells you this isn't a real AMG, don't believe them. Sorry you flew back there. This has over 200 kilowatts and it has 400 Newton meters available from 3,000 RPM. That was race start. So you go into Sport Plus, put your foot on the brake, hold the accelerator, and your instrument cluster will let you know when you're ready to go. This thing rockets. The A35 AMG is a bona fide AMG product because it is just so tuned for performance-oriented driving. Now, the thing about the new generation of A-Class is that there is a lot to talk about with these screens here, and that's something that we went through earlier. So all I'm here to do is talk about the different types of driving modes that you can customize in the A35 AMG, and these are AMG specific. You can't really do stuff like this in an A250, and they can be accessed through either the wheel that you're only confined to Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus, but there is one more, and it's called Slippery, and it's really something that's normally reserved for something like a Ferrari or a Porsche because they struggle for grip in the wet. The A35 is all-wheel drive, so it shouldn't, in theory, struggle for grip. So it's funny they have a slippery mode, but when you get 400 Newton meters of torque at 3,000 RPM, you are going to struggle for grip a little bit if you decide to punch it. Comfort, that's what you bought the Mercedes for, because they can be comfortable. And it really is. The gearbox relaxes, the steering relaxes, the suspension relaxes. Your engine input isn't as aggressive, and you feel like you can just have a nice relaxing drive in this thing, albeit you are driving a flat bottom square feeling steering wheel and you're in bucket seats. But let's face it, that's why you didn't buy an AMG to drive in comfort mode all the time, did you? You bought it because you could flick this into sport. And sport livens up the car a bit, it's sort of a progression of comfort, stiffens up everything a little bit, makes you feel like you're driving a bit more sporty, which is kind of cool. But sport still doesn't give you the full fat flavor of an A35 AMG. What it does do is give you a tiny bit more engagement for when you don't really want to upset your passengers so much, but you want to feel like you want to drive a bit more aggressively. So Sport is good for that, and it's good for around town driving because Sport Plus can feel a little bit laborious in day-to-day traffic. Introducing Sport Plus, that's what we'll do, and take a listen. And you get a bit more sound from the engine, and that's partly due because it's a little bit artificial coming from the inside of the cabin, but that's okay. It's not super aggressive artificial sound. And you get a far more aggressive suspension tune, and your throttle input feels a lot sharper. So when you're in Sport Plus, you go to accelerate, you're gonna have all your power available to you as soon as possible. Whereas in Comfort and Sport, it's more on the lesser side just because it wants to create a smoother driving experience. But being in Sport Plus is where you want to be in this car. This is what makes the A35 AMG an AMG. It is Sport Plus. It's where you're going to hear that turbocharger. It's when you're going to hear the exhaust note. It's when you're going to hear the crackle and pop. Sport Plus is where it is at. And that's the one that someone in the showroom might show you. That's what the A35 AMG is all about. But it's nice to know that a car like this can relax and all the way back in comfort mode and drive like your grandma's A-Class, because let's face it, if you're buying this is probably going to be maybe your only car or your second car. And I tell you what, if it's your only car, you won't be complaining because it does so much in just one form factor. So it is quite advantageous for that. And that's been the A35 AMG. Should you consider getting one? Well, yeah, against its competitors like the BMW 135i or the Audi S3 or the VW Golf R, this is a formidable competitor. With a combination of luxury, practicality, and performance like this, you will not be disappointed. And you can option it up to look something pretty exciting just like this one, and you'll forget its bigger, badder brother, the A45 AMG, even exists. And so thanks for joining us on another ProductReview.com.au in-depth look at the Mercedes A35 AMG. My name's Cameron, and I'll see you in the next one.